and welcome to Rulebreaker. Today we're diving deeper into Twilight Imperium 4th edition's expansion Prophecy of Kings, taking a look at the leaders and mech unit for the L1Z1X Mindnet. So a quick recap of what these guys are about. So they love bombarding planets, they've got really good dreadnoughts, in fact super dreadnoughts, and they have an inheritance system that allows them to sort of skip technologies, get to deeper in technologies quicker, and they're not very political. They do have a lot of resources at the start of the game and they like to expand early. The Lizics are also one of the most popular factions in the game. So without further ado, we're going to take a look at their leaders and mech. So first of all, they have an agent called I48S. They have a commander called 2RAM. They have a hero called the Helmsman, and they have a mech called the Annihilator. Alright, so let's look straight in at this agent here, the Enhancer Prodigy, which reads, after a player activates a system, you may exhaust this card to allow that player to replace one of their infantry in the active system with one mech from their reinforcements. Okay, so the timing of this one is very specific. It's after a player activates a system. That doesn't have to be the Lizics themselves, although it can be, and then it means the Lizics can choose to exhaust the card and then do the effect, which is to then replace an infantry with a mech from their reinforcements. So of course the player has to have an infantry in the system and change it with a mech. Now that can be on a planet, or it can be as capacity on a carrier or something like Super Dreadnought 2, anything that has this capacity function on it. So you can choose that to be in the air when you're attacking, or you can choose it to be on the ground when you're defending. And as you can see from the mech unit down here, they all have this 2 cost 6 combat stat line here, meaning that they're 4 times as expensive as infantry, but they're better in combat. So this is a nice way of getting those units in and onto the board for the Lizics themselves, and the fact that you can choose any other player means that you can make some friends, which is something that the Lizics are not very good at usually. So now you've got that extra dimension of possibility with them. It's worth noting as well, it's specifically the player who activates the system, so if someone attacks you, you can't use this to turn one of your infantry into a mech in your system when they attack you. It's only the person who's activating the system specifically who can be affected by this. So that's a nice bit of utility for ground combat for the Lizics. Alright, moving on to their commander 2RAM, the integrated systems engineer. This one will unlock when you have 4 dreadnoughts on the game board, which these guys love the dreadnoughts. You can see they have the super dreadnoughts, so they're likely to do that pretty quickly. Once they've got them, 2RAM flips over and is available with the text, units that have planetary shield do not prevent you from using bombardment. Alright, so planetary shield usually is when you see the PDS unit here. That's the most common form of planetary shield. Players tend to build these when they've picked the construction strategy card, stick them down on a planet. They've got planetary shield, meaning that bombardment, as you see on Super Dreadnought and also on Warsun and some flagships, is not working anymore, because that's what that effect is now, and that has been the bane of the existence of the L1Z1X since the game came out really. Now when they've got this commander unlocked, the bombardment's possible even when players have PDS and other units that have planetary shield, which is great for them because they love their bombardment and they do it all the time. This is a straight up boost for their super dreadnoughts. That bombardment hitting on a 4 is a really big difference in combat, and now combining that with the potential to drop mechs in at will when you activate a system means that this invasion strategy of theirs is all the more potent now. Worth noting as well that because this is the commander, if you make an alliance with somebody with the alliance promissory note, they will also have this ability as well, and because it's an always on ability, not something you exhaust, there's no limit to the amount of times that this is going to affect the game round. So pretty cool commander, one that really works for these guys. Probably not the most immediately flashy and exciting one, but it really does enable them to just get going on what they want to do. And moving on to their hero, the Helmsman, the last record. This one unlocks when you've scored 3 objectives, so you flip it over after you've scored your 3rd objective, and it becomes Dark Space Navigation. This is an action which reads, choose one system that does not contain other players' ships. You may move your flagship and any number of your dreadnoughts from other systems into the chosen system, then purge this card. So a once per game action, the card is purged when you've done it, gone from the game completely. You choose a system that has no ships by another player. So that's the downfall of this, really. I mean, you can't just pick Mech Rex if it's got a bunch of opponents' ships in it. You can, however, choose any applicable system that doesn't have the ships on it. And just to point out their flagship again here, which has the text, during a space combat, hits produced by this ship and by your dreadnoughts in the system must be assigned to non-fighter ships available, meaning that fighters are useless in that situation. And also when you do this Dark Space Navigation, that's going to be key to that as well. You're probably going to target an area flooded with opponents' ships for your next movement in. So pinch everything together, get them all into one place. Likely to be used with the Warfare strategy card, meaning that you can take the token out of the system and then move the ships again. That's likely what you're going to want to do with this. Corner somebody and just mash them with your dreadnought fleet. Of course, to set this up, you're probably going to want a lot of fleet supply, meaning that you can do this with a big fleet. I feel like this is a real kind of like end of the game kind of move, where you pull all of your units through a bunch of wormholes, maybe far reaching across the map in order to take the win. So think about this one as a long play, not something that you do want to whim. And big scary bombarding units as well for taking control of a planet. So an interesting hero. I'd be very curious about anybody's opinions on this who would have played with or against the Lizic since Prophecy of Kings came out. Has this been effective? Have you used it effectively? If so, shout out in the comments and let us know. We'd love to hear about it. And the last thing for Prophecy of Kings here is the Mech, the Annihilator, which is a 2-cost 6 combat sustained damage mech, but also has bombardment. Now it's bombardment 8, so less likely to hit than the combat, but still bombardment, another unit bombardment that you can stick. And the other good thing about it is it can go on your super dreadnoughts, which have capacity to carry them, so even more bombardment for destroying things on planets. And then the text just kind of clarifies that a little bit. It says, while not participating in ground combat, this unit can use its bombardment ability on planets in its system as if it were a ship. So obviously bombardment doesn't happen in ground combat itself when the mech is down there, because it's not above the planet, but when it's in the air it can do its bombardment before it lands. Simple as, really. You could leave the mech on the ship and not drop it down in the ground combat if you wish, but the ground combat hits on 6s, so there's no reason to really do that. It's like an extra phase of attacks with this guy. And that's it for their Prophecy of Kings stuff. There is something I wanted to point out as well from the Twilight Imperium Codex. So the Codex is a print and play expansion that you can get from the Fantasy Flight Games website, and it's totally free. You just need to print it out for yourself. What they've done is they've taken the cybernetics enhancements promissory note from the L1Z1X and they've changed it to cybernetic enhancements Omega. Now what's happening is, instead of the player you give this to taking a token from your strategy pool, which you don't want to happen, they just get an additional command token themselves and then give the card back. So that makes this a lot more likely to be given out than this one. This was kind of really penalizing. It could be devastating if you didn't have that many tokens, so there wasn't really much incentive to give it out, even for a really good price. But now the Omega version is something that allows you, again, small element of making friends, and also doesn't hinder you in the process with your own tokens. So just overall, generally more beneficial for you and other players, and better balanced, I think, for the game. So that's it really for the L1Z1X with the Prophecy of Kings updates. I think they have just gotten a little bit better at the things that they're already good at. Bombardment, smashing things on planets, big dreadnought fleets, becoming this wave of destruction across the galaxy. That's what they like to do, and the stuff that they've gotten here just enhances that capability that bit more. So that's it for me today on this one. It's been a pleasure talking you through these guys, and come back for more videos in the near future. This is Rulebreaker. Thanks for watching.